want to begin with a short contemplation, and then we're going to jump into introducing our panel. So Paul has already invited you to center and be paying attention to your breath. And this quote comes from Thich Nhat Hanh. We need a real awakening, a real enlightenment. New laws and policies are not enough. We need to change our way of thinking and seeing things. This is possible. The truth is, we have not really tried to do it yet. Each one of us has to do it for ourselves. No one else can do it for you. If you are an activist and you're eager to do something, you should begin with yourself and your own mind. It's my conviction that we cannot change the world if we're not able to change our way of thinking, our consciousness. Collective change in our way of thinking and seeing things is crucial. Without it, we cannot expect the world to change. Collective awakening is made of individual awakening. You must wake yourself up first, and then those around you have a chance. When we ourselves suffer less, we can be more helpful, and we can help others to change themselves too. Peace, awakening, and enlightenment always begin with you. You are the one you need to count on. Thich Nhat Hanh. Thank you. So it's my great pleasure today to moderate this panel of some amazing people that I've been privileged to meet and work with. Each of these people is doing work in the area of workplace spirituality and the extension of it, global spirituality and global consciousness. They each represent organizations that are on the forefront, real pioneers in research and in movement building in order to transform the world. And their bios are on the bio sheet for this program, but I'm just going to give you a quick overview of their organizations. Prasad Kaipa represents Indica Academy, and he runs the Center for Consciousness Studies and Inner Transformation at Indica Academy. Claire LeChance is the CEO of the Institute of Noetic Sciences, and she is not new to MSR. She spoke here in the last couple of years, and we're just so delighted to have you. Fred Tsao is the founder of Aitia Institute and the chairman of IMC Pan Asia Alliance Group, which is a very large multinational, and he is co-author with Chris Laszlo of the book Quantum Leadership, and we've seen lots of presentations from Chris about that. And Xiaoan Li, everyone knows and loves you, Xiaoan. Xiaoan is the senior program officer at Fetzer Institute. He is the person who created the Fetzer scholarships, and he is also chair of this MSR research committee, and so has been really holding this planning space for these 2 days to emerge. So I'm now going to turn it over to Prasad, who is a person with just incredible heart and wisdom. I would call you, Prasad, a real edge walker, because you have walked between the worlds of the Silicon Valley and high tech and human development and deep studies in the Vedic sciences and on how that applies to today's business. So Prasad, welcome. I am going to, well, no, I'm not going to. It doesn't matter. Never mind. Welcome. I'll try to give you a sign of when there's about 1 minute left.
Hi, Judy. I'm really sorry I couldn't get onto my computer, so I can only get onto my phone.
Oh.
So sorry. I have some technology issue here.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Fred, we hear you. Judy, I think you're on mute.
I muted myself. Sorry, Fred. So glad you're here, and we'll take you whatever way we can get you. We're thrilled to have you with us.
So my apologies, because I'm trying to get on my computer, my iPad, but looks like my technology touch isn't working so well. So I'm afraid I have just got to use this little phone I have.
Okay, that'll work. I'm sorry we can't see you, but we're so happy to hear you. So the order that we're going to go in is Prasad, then Claire, then Fred, and then we'll wrap it up with Shawan. And so you have, actually at this point now we're running a little over, so I'm going to give you 6 minutes each.
Okay.
Well, actually, no, I'm going to leave it 7 because we'll just do a shorter Q&A if we get to that. I want you to be able to say everything you've prepared to say. All
Thank
right? All right, Prasad, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Namaste, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. I'm representing the Indic Academy, where we have created a Center for Consciousness Studies and Inner Transformation about a year and a half ago, where we have been focusing on 3 elements: leading, coaching, and healing. We began to realize that contemplative practices, where we look at actually the classical dance in India, the architecture, which we look at how the building architecture can actually create a structure for communication architecture. And of course, the Yoga Sutras, which are foundation for some of the, not just the yoga at the body level and the breath level, but how it can impact our emotions. And we started doing research with about 22 people who are professors, psychologists, executive coaches. There are a couple of psychiatrists, HR officers from different parts, and there are research students and dancers in our group. And we have been working with them for 1 year. We have created what we call a co-evolve cohort and researching on how does it affect our own inner transformation. And as we transform, how does it affect how we coach, how we lead, and how we do healing? Because there are psychologists who are working with youth on bulimia, like eating disorders. There are, adult psychologists, who work with adult patients as well. So we began to look at and realize that as we do that, the key thing which we talk about is inner transformation, as all of us know, is like an iceberg. And the conditioned mind is what we see outside the above the water line, if I might call, but the conscious mind is deep within. So the environment which we work with, the field in which we operate, has got both tangible elements and intangible elements. So the conditioned mind, if we want to begin to affect, obviously the action that we do, the behavior we demonstrate, is something that can be visible from outside, but our reinforced conditioning, instinctive learning that is coming out of our values, our beliefs, and our experiences, they shape the conditioned mind and they shape the behavior. And if we begin to really look at not just the conditioned mind, but our complete mind, conscious mind, that is affected by our body sensations, but by our emotions. Emotions here, we are calling them as energy in motion, emotion. And then when those energy motions are cognized, they become the feelings. And those feelings, when we name them and when we pay attention to them and think newly, that affect our thought patterns. And of course, they affect the actions. So this is essentially recognizing that body sensations, emotions, and feelings are all to be observed in an immersive way. So when we do the inner transformation through immersive introspection, and here I am using a Sanskrit word, anchoring in the field of dharma through intensive study. What is my dharma? What is appropriate for me? What is the right process? It is like each one of us have a clarity, inner calling, inner purpose. If we can discover that through aligning our own behavior with our thoughts and our feelings and our speech, when we do that, then our commitment intensifies. Our commitment to dharmic action. Dharmic action here essentially means an aligned action, aligned with our actions, thoughts, and words. And this requires significant amount of guiding and the guided practice. And when we do that, then we emerge with what we might call our full potential, or igniting the inner genius, or emerging with a divine potential. These are different phrases and words that we can use. And this is the underlying, what you might call a model that we use for inner transformation. So the journey that we have been taking for past 1 year, actually the journey, the research project will end August 27th of this year. So we begin with what is called the heart space. How do we really begin to create a space that is focused more on connecting with people at an emotional and a feeling level? Can we really begin to resonate at an emotional level where we feel personally connected, where we are feeling like we are co-journeyers on this path? That we started with autoethnography, telling our stories in a different way. And then this is again Vastu Purusha Mandala. That means essentially the architecture. Vastu is a model of Indian architecture. And I will describe what it is and how we talk about as people are coming in from the street, coming into the veranda of our house, coming into the front room, coming into the dining or the heart space. Then in the night, after we related to each other, sit in the backyard, have a glass of juice or have a glass of wine, or, and sitting down and sharing our heart stories and our life journeys. What does it mean to move through that energy from just connecting with each other to sharing our life journeys? So how does that happen?
Yeah,
And
Prasad,
then
we have about 1 minute left.
Oh, okay. Then we created a three-dimensional paradigm, and then we have been exploring the various rasas and exploring the architectural figures. So this one, if you look at the first one we began to recognize, was like, if you have seen a movie Inside Out, which came from Pixar or Disney, they talk about 5 emotions. We found in the Indian dance, there are several different emotions. We talk about the 9 emotions which are explored through the dance. The purpose of the Indian classical dance is not just for the dancer to feel those emotions, but how do you get the audience to experience that emotions? And then similarly, we talk about there are hero, victim, and the villain. We talk about Cartman triangle. But we found through not only the dance, but also the drama, which we talked about. We looked at the archetypal figures, which include the dreamer and the judge and the beckoner and the guard. Ultimately, how we can help people through peace and develop the ecstatic potential. So we started with a triadic dialogue first, the meditator, where there is a speaker, listener, and a witness. And recently we added somebody like a mother. We need to develop certain field of rebirthing a person into a consciousness. So we call Sakshi, who is the witness, Sakhi, a close friend who listens deeply, and the speaker, who is the actor, and then the Matrutvam, mother, somebody holds the space very deeply out of love. And this is how we began to look at, this is the Vastu Mandala.
Prasad,
And
I'm going
so
to be
we'll stop at this. And I will stop at this point saying, we are really researching, we are really excited about where we have come to, and we will talk more about it at another time.
Thank you, Prasad. I feel like the loving mother holding space.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's so exciting what you're doing and that you're doing research on it. And I know that one of the goals of this is creating a highly conscious coaching program that helps coaches develop leaders with global consciousness. So thank you. We'll have and I didn't say that this panel all knows each other and has been working together in service of global consciousness. And so it's just wonderful to have this like little reunion among you. I want to now turn it over to Claire LaChance, who is the CEO of Institute of Noetic Sciences, and who has been doing amazing work in the world and has lots of good ideas about the research that's needed in the field of MSR and beyond. Thank you, Claire.
Oh gosh, thank you for that beautiful welcome. And Prasad, always wonderful to listen, and I want to go on and on with your presentation. I want to make sure, can everybody see my slides? Judy,
Yes.
I'll just look for a nod. Okay, that's great. So I have about 7 minutes, and I'm going to I think maybe Paul, I think might want to mute Fred's iPhone. I think sometimes
I can see.
Okay, I'm going to continue on and say, I'm going to be talking about at the Work of Ions, a program we've been developing called Noetic Leadership. And as I'm talking about it, even though there's a summary slide at the end, the question I want to pose to the whole MSR group is, how might we study this in terms of bringing this forward with leaders? So this whole research discussion is very much on our mind, and that's how I'm going to try to discuss this today. But just, you know what, and I'm going to ask Paul for some help maybe. Sometimes with my laptop, there is a delay on my advancing my slides. So I'm going to, shoot, but it's not the ideal way to move forward. Oh, I might have to. Oh yeah, thank you. Hey, thanks a lot, Paul. Really appreciate that. So just to get us grounded, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Institute of Noetic Sciences, or what we love to call IONS, IONS was founded almost 50 years ago by the astronaut Edgar Mitchell, who after his moonwalk, when he was returning from the moon, had a massive epiphany. He had this enormous sense of personal interconnection with all there is. And he looks back at the earth, and Paul, you could just go to that next slide. He goes back to the earth. He looks back and he sees this beautiful marble. This is called the overview effect, and probably many of you are familiar with it. And it just, for him, completely reset the rest of his life in terms of feeling, oh my goodness, look at, we are all truly interconnected. Look at the beautiful world we live in, look at beyond. And it changed his whole way of thinking how we should lead, how we should be. And so he comes back and he founds the Institute of Noetic Sciences to actually research this interconnectedness. And so Noetic leadership, which has existed over, not called Noetic leadership all the time, but what we've done over the past 3 years has we've formalized this into an initiative. And the point I wanted to anchor us all in is that we see Noetic leadership as stewarded by IONS, not owned by IONS, but stewarded. And it's anchored in 2 prongs: nourishing or cultivating one's inner wisdom as a leader, and how to lead from a true sense of interconnection. That's the overview effect. And Paul, we can just move on there. We like to say that noetic leadership is about integrating the rational and the trans-rational. It's not about tossing out the rational. I'm here, I just arrived in Boston near I just went by my alma mater. I went to Harvard Business School. And, you know, believe me, as a leader, I use my classical business training. And I also use, probably equally, what I would say is my inner wisdom, my noetic tools. And it's that integration we're really probing in this work. And so just quickly, I'll say, you know, from the perspective of cultivating inner wisdom, and Paul, you can just move forward. And thanks so much for doing this, by the way. Oh, ions, I will say this, you know, whether we're talking about inner wisdom or we're talking about interconnection, ions research has been in the area of the science behind the interconnected field. And we're guided by a hypothesis that everything is interconnected. And it's by accessing that interconnection that one can use information and energy, like we say, that exists beyond space-time. It's basically the all that is. And we have each different words for it. But IONS has been actually studying how that operates in the field of physics, in healing, global consciousness through the collective consciousness studies and so forth. So inner wisdom, the inner wisdom, probably our most, just to cut to the chase, our most cutting edge research that's just emerging is on what we call noetic signature. And I like to think of noetic signature like the Myers-Briggs of, let's call it noetic sciences. Some people might use the word spiritual. Everyone has their own word. But the point is that noetic signature is a way to see, for each person has their own unique signature into how he or she taps in to that interconnected field. Some people, it comes through just deep inner knowing, flashes of insight. Some people get it through physical sensations. So other people get it through their dreams. Others might see great results in being able to do some self-healing or heal others. We've identified through the research 12 factors or 12 characteristics. And something I'm very excited about, and I mentioned in my closing here in 2 minutes or so, is that I think looking at how noetic signature shows up for leaders could be very powerful. On the interconnected side, I want to go back to that overview effect that I talked about, Edgar's epiphany coming back from space. What is it that can transform people in leadership roles? Is it, not everyone can go to the moon and come back, right? It might be someday. But the point is, how can we create that true experience? We have a virtual reality exercise at IONS, a program actually that mimics Edgar's experience to the best of our ability. But beyond that, the point is that if you are truly seeing you will look at your ecosystem differently. You will make better decisions. And there's much in indigenous wisdom traditions, the 7 generations, for instance. And we're just hearing, obviously, from the work that's happening at Indica and elsewhere. And that supports the whole world of ESG, the environmental, social governance, and what we love to say is the triple bottom line model that many of you are familiar of. We really feel that when I talk about noetic leadership with others, I try to remind them the point is it's for positive purpose in the world. And you need the tools to be able to do that, to better access your inner wisdom and trust it and use it, and to also have tools to lead from interconnection. So my final slide is just a summary of, I almost put an exclamation point on the last slide because there's so much research that's needed in this area, which is one major category is the degree to which leaders of all types actually use noetic practices or spiritual practices, and really study that. We know through other research we've done, even mainstream scientists in a survey we conducted, I think it was almost 90% of them cited using noetic practices. And that was a shock because they're often people primarily in a more materialist perspective. We also feel the noetic signature model, those 12 factors, if we could study that and better understand how each person could develop and strengthen one's ability to tap their inner wisdom and ability to lead from interconnection. And lastly, I feel the quantification of impact would be very powerful. If someone says, hey, I think I'm a noetic type leader, are you achieving better economic returns, societal outcomes, environmental outcomes, employee retention, innovative practices? Is there a link there? So Judy, am I on? I think I used my time, but I wanted to wrap up with that slide about some possible research pathways.
Yeah, it's very exciting because I hear that as an invitation. This group, this MSR group, and particularly those who attend the colloquium, are emerging scholars and senior scholars, and just hungry to know that this kind of work has practical implications in the world, and that other organizations really value it and want help and want to collaborate. And so we'll need to find a way that students and researchers can be in touch with you and perhaps offer their services and be much more involved. So thank you. That's just such an inspiring presentation. Both you and Prasad are doing just groundbreaking work, and really grateful.
And thank you, Paul, for your help over there. I really appreciated that. So glad we had a backup. Thanks, Judy.
Thank you, Claire. So our next presenter on the panel is Fred Tsao, and Fred is the CEO and chairman of Aitia Foundation, and which is also doing some incredible research, and while at the same time running a major company out of Singapore called IMC. And Fred is the co-author, as I mentioned earlier, with Chris Laszlo of Quantum Leadership. And so Fred, I can't see you. Okay, I see the iPhone is there. So Fred, welcome. We'd love to hear what you think about is the needed research to create greater conscious leadership and consciousness in the world.
Yeah, my research is really of a main thrust, and then there's side research that would go parallel. The main thrust I'm doing, and I do a lot of collaboration too. So if you have noticed, I actually last year published a book with Ervin Laszlo on the new paradigm, which as you change the worldview, you change the era. So that book is called The Dawn of the Era of Well-Being, New Path to a Better Tomorrow, and has a lot of contributors into it, from Deepak Chopra, Craig Braden, Bruce Lipton, and a few, up to 8, talking about worldview. My research with Laszlo Institute collaboration is the new paradigm language interface with major traditions to bridge between physics and metaphysics and try to work on creating a common language. That's one side of the research. My primary research is to shift consciousness, and the work is to make Western science of consciousness with the Chinese science of consciousness. Funny enough, there is not enough work to integrate the Confucius, Taoist, and the Buddhist tradition, and we're using the Western science as a foundation to work on that. The purpose is to help people shift consciousness, go on a new journey, and create a new era. And it's about economics. So I just finished a book that is with a publisher called One Choice, One World, The Rise of Well-Being and Happiness Economy, which the United Nations is advocating. And this book is a normative economic book. And so one aspect that we're doing is how do we shift consciousness for people to change the journey of life into shifting consciousness and to go on a calling of reorganizing one's consciousness state to live one's calling in the creation of the era, which is in line with evolution. So that's my main thrust, and it's based on quantum leadership and evolutionary organization. Is a systemic approach, which is based on the great learning of the Confucius tradition of ethics as we are facing an ethical issue in economic creation and personal awakening. On the side, of course, we need to down it into more physicalization of consciousness into our neural system, into the whole information flow system. That's one aspect of downstream, but upstream is systemic and helping people go onto that journey. On the side, with the Laszlo, we're also are doing research to see how the Eastern tradition cross-reference each other and learn from each other, and took an integrative consolidation, take stock approach of the wisdom of humanity. And the idea of IT Institute is to create a new management school from managing self to managing organization, and to interlink so that business do not get disconnected with humanity, and humanity is not disconnected with our spirituality. And so that's my main research topic. And there are a number of research that we do that on economic transformation. There are 7 faculty that is related that we're researching, whether it's education or integrated medicine and life science, structural urban planning, management and leadership, and so forth. It is about a systemic approach, which is the best to mimic a dualistic material world, systemic thinking of understanding. Meantime, shifting worldview, what the Buddha called the 5 eyes of seeing reality, and also developing modality of how we can create a longer direction of the shift of consciousness so that our emotions does not interfere. As we see chaos, then we are lack of ability to see clearly because there is no chaos, there's only order. And so as we move on of shifting consciousness, human evolution can move into creating this new era of well-being and so forth. So it goes from economic research all the way down to individual spirituality, integration research. That's my work that I'm doing right now. And we are doing it through collaboration because we are quite limited with capacity. But the area that we're researching is a systemic to help people shift consciousness and going on the journey and create a new era. But also we are beginning to do deeper research that we want to start in neuroscience. And that where we would put this neuroscience in the physicalization and measurability of consciousness in this whole process to support the shift. And so that's the area that I focus on right now. There's just too many areas to study consciousness and integration and consolidation of humanity wisdom in this territory. And so that's my area of focus right now. Personal journey to era creation to economic transformation. Thank you. That's my area of research.
Ooh, Fred. Fred, you're like a kid in a candy store. So just unbounded energy and interests, and I just always am awe of how you follow through in creating programs and research, and output that makes such a difference. One of the things that we're grateful in MSR that you have sponsored is the 3-year series of JMSR on the well-being era. And I'm going to put a link in the chat in a minute because you sponsored this so everyone can download those for free, which is just incredibly generous and also quite wise of you, because the more that we can spread this kind of research out to the world, the more we will shift consciousness. And I'm going to take away, I loved your phrase, there is no chaos, there is only order. And when you said that, I actually felt like a shift in my sense of reality, that across the ontological gap that you and Chris Laszlo talk about. So thank you so much. And we seem to have lost Shawan. Paul, have you seen him come back in? I can't tell.
I'm here,
Oh,
Judy.
okay, wonderful. So it's my great pleasure to introduce our fourth panelist, Shawan Lee, who is a senior program manager at Institute of Noetic Sciences and an incredible friend to MSR, as well as to so many other organizations, and someone who's passionate about education and, Shawan, I would say also about love. And so please share your perspective of what we need to do to create a more loving world in terms of our research.
Joanne, we can't hear you. You're on mute. There you go.
Hello. Paul, you can hear me this time?
You're good. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to pause to celebrate the 3 speakers who came before us, before me in this case. Institute has had profound connection with, of course, Prasad, who was actually a FETSR Advisory Council member when we in the really study on the power of love and forgiveness. Thank you, Prasad. Then, of course, Claire, the IONS and the FETSR Institute have had a long relationship for decades of time. It's a fellow travelers organizations. And Fred, we're starting to really get to know each other. I share your cultural heritage origin from China. I agree with you. The need to be the bridge builder between Eastern and the Western culture and the Western traditions. And I'm representing the FETSR Institute. I don't know if I can actually do a justice to a wonderful and a rich part of good work. The FETSR Foundation started in 1962, and then the FETSR Institute since 1985. It's very much consistent in the area of supporting good research and practice. Understanding this very phenomena, are we fundamentally human beings having a spiritual experience, or are we fundamentally spiritual being while we're here having this human experience? And it's really a starting place to say, we were all born into big and deep mystery. We cannot simply get in the way, not asking those deep questions, who we are, where we're coming from, where are we going, how do we relate to each other, to the deep self, others, the natural world, and the higher power. Because John Fetz is unique as a spiritual seeker, the Institute has been really uniquely positioned to kind of tackle those questions, no kidding. And let me just say, because of that profound belief that the power in faith and spirituality, and I'm gonna share our guiding purpose, which is like a constitution holding FETSR Institute and our communities for the past 6 years, which is awaken into and serve spirit for the transformation of self and society based on 3 fundamental principles: freedom of spirit, wholeness of reality, and unconditional love, as well as integration of inner life and mind and outer life of action and service. We really do a lot of work in my last sentence, which is the integration of inner life of mind and spirit and outer life of action and service. In a question for just give you some idea about what things have been done and the work that we have supported, particularly in the research and the science area, just understanding who we actually are individually. I'm talking about the micro level of who we actually are. And then further being consistent support research on IQ development, emotional quotient, EQ, when we supported Dan Goleman, the book, The Emotional Intelligence, for example, and then the field of social and emotional learning, which birthed out of the Fetzer Institute in 1994. And then now we are really moving on to, and the spiritual element as the important part of the framework. How do we transform as humans? When you talk, we're kind of making progress, if you can see my hands, right? And IQ, EQ, social, mental, psychological, and having spiritual at the very center as the core for this, what we call the holistic human development. So we support a lot of research in develop discovery, making its way and heading towards the direction of what is a holistic development framework. If that is the micro level, then how about the meso, which is the community and organizational level? It is always so difficult to pin down to say where Xiaoan is on his spiritual journey. That's hard to be measured and to be studied. However, what can be studied is how Xiaoan's yearning to develop, to deepen, has been supported by the environment, by the organization, by the company, by the family, by the church. Oh gosh, there's enormous amount of research about how that has been supported. You know, a lot of metrics, conditions has been studied, and what are some of the preconditions that have really been useful, necessary, critical for individual and collective to grow the relationship at a very deep level. Then you guys heard two of my colleagues, Bill and Megan, yesterday, talking about Fetzer's interest supporting, if you know, micro, meso. Then the third level is really this national and international and global movement. I'm talking about the macro level of research and understanding. I once again, as we deepening our understanding about who we are from all different important elements using this circle, and then when broadening those from this horizontal, how we relate to each other, into this vertical, how do we actually relate to the higher power, the divine, and our deeper selves? A lot of research, I think it's fair to say Fetzers have spent billions of dollars in the past many decades supporting interesting relationships. IONS is one of the such, you know, of friends, organizations, and fundies of Fetzer support. The interesting relationship between physical and metaphysical, mind and matter. In those areas, there's some important fields are now very much thriving. Physics, quantum physics, consciousness, and then really contribute to the establishment of significant organizations such as Mind and Life Institute. And I don't know where we are with this time, but I just believe I'm eager to spend time with you know, researchers in this community, particularly because you're wrestling with the question, to me, the second level, mostly the meso, looking at a specific context of management and the business, and how see phenomena that you want to study through the lens of spiritual and faith, and how that is just because of the shift, the narrative that you see the activity and the phenomena, and study them with the presumption that we are integrally and deeply connected with each other, having a sacred relationship with each other, and how that shift is already had an impact on how we relate, how we do research, and how we choose to love instead of hate. I think another very exciting field that we've been really yearning into is the mind, body, and health, mind, body, and well-being. Human flourishing and well-being science has become such.
1 minute.
Thank you, Judy. And Fed's most recently been really supporting, I guess you guys know probably, there's a FAN, F-A-N, flourishing academic network. In about 12 universities, leading universities in the world, mostly in the US, like Harvard and Stanford, they all have the Human Flourishing Project. And the idea is really it's time for us to cutting across in the boundaries and coming from individual sectors of discipline to look at the common and the shared space. What are the conditions for flourishing for all? I think Fetzer Institute is really ready to look at three potential area as core area for Fetzer's own science program. The first one is science on love, power of love, the nature of love in the different circumstances, how love can be nurtured and supported so we are born as love beings and continue to be so for each other. The second area, we want to support research, really, like I mentioned, the human flourishing. Now, it seems like it's limiting. We're talking about shared flourishing when we have the natural world and other intangible living being. So we're talking about shared flourishing for all. The third one is the study on consciousness and the global consciousness, which we're really starting to have some great conversations with individual leaders like Judy and many others. So there's a whole lot more, but I want to encourage you to visit our website, fetzer.org. Thank you. And back to you, Judy.
There is so much energy and excitement going on in the comments in the chat. Thank you, Shawan. That is so incredibly inspirational. And I also want to personally thank you because 7 years ago, you reached out to me. I didn't know you and you didn't know me. And you wanted to know if I was interested in doing a study on workplace spirituality, which Fetzer funded, which is now available to all. It's open to the public, and we have it in the MSR library, which includes an annotated bibliography of the seminal articles in the field. It includes a very 96-page literature review, which might be helpful to some doctoral students, and an annotated list of organizations who have workplace spirituality practices. And that was all generously sponsored by Fetzer, but it also gave us the gift of our friendship, and I'm grateful for that more than anything. So in the time we have left, I think the most exciting thing we could do is have you talk to each other. I know it'd be wonderful to have questions from the participants, but you each are doing such amazing work. And what questions do you have for each other, or what do you want to share? Because there is such an interconnectedness among your organizations and your visions.
Well, maybe I'll just make a quick comment and put it out there to the esteemed panelists today. How could we, I feel I'm really focused, and I feel my focus will be increasing on practitioners. So people actually in the frontline seat of having, as they say, P&L responsibility and live employee responsibilities. How could we work together to come up with efficient toolkits that achieve the deep, rich aspirational goals? Just thinking of what Shawan was just commenting on, not losing the macro, but trying to bring forth tools and practices that could be implemented in real time. That I feel would be, put that out there for discussion.
Thank you, Claire. Again, the chat is lighting up.
Yeah, I see.
Practitioners, the change agents. That is something each of you is focused on with your organizations and with the educational and research, is who are the people who can leverage the kind of transformation that will ripple out, that will scale in such a way that we find a shift in humanity. Prasad, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I have been finding, like even Claire and I, we had a webinar through the IONS, and obviously working with you, Judy, and Ina and various other colleagues in your Global Consciousness Institute. And of course, now it is 13, 14 years since I have been working with the Fetzer Institute. And I think your focus on love, I think those are excellent. And I'm looking forward to the major insight for us at the Institute of, I mean, at our consciousness and inner transformation is recognizing the role of uh, love as a mother, not just role of a dear friend, but who can bring the love in a different way. We are recognizing love of self, love of the witness, love of a dear friend, and how do we create a space as love of a mother so that each of us can sprout and be reborn again into that love, reborn as a leader, reborn as a healer, and reborn as a coach in the context of love. That is something which has been a major rediscovery for us. So we are really interested in exploring this nature of consciousness and intersection with love and practice. So we are looking forward to collaborating and partnering with various people who are on the call and dealing with the spiritual and practical aspects at the same time.
Thank
May
you.
I comment and respond?
Please, yes.
Yeah. So first of all, we're using the same modality as you are, coaching, healing, and learning as a shift agent. We're very interested to collaborate to study the Chinese modality and the Indian modality interface. So I really look forward if we could collaborate on this regard. The way we do it is to test it on ourselves. So idea is in the process of creating a new management school, and the first client is ourselves. And so we're testing on ourselves because that's all we needed to do and to validate if it works or not. But being in this part of Asia and knowing the significance of China rising to the Western science and the Chinese science integration of modality. We use the Hawkins map of consciousness when we're thinking about love, but the Hawkins map of consciousness is integrating with our Chinese modality. And if you look at that map, I don't know how familiar you are, love only happens when you shift your consciousness away from emotion, which is the foundation of the interference. The minute you have I, that comes into chaos and confusion. So if you look at the map, the ontological first threshold is courage, where now you can see reality of vulnerability, of the interference of the self, and you learn to take responsibility, and now you start shifting upward. When you reach love, you pass through reasoning. And when you stabilize energy, moving upward from courage to neutrality and willingness and acceptance and reasoning, the next level it is love. Love is can you rid of the self because we are love itself. Love is holism and understanding the life is universe and we are in the whole context. And then it becomes a natural thing for us. Love is not an emotion. Love is a different kind of understanding and connectivity. It does not work on the conventional understanding of empathy and connectivity on an emotional basis. It is not. It is a wisdom itself, rid of emotions itself. When we rid of emotions, then we understand. Now, the Dawkins map is not complete because it links with the level of consciousness and energy with the astral body, with the mental, emotional body, but it doesn't deal with the physical body because it has come from Hawkins, which is a psychotherapist. But the body plays an important part too. So when we bring the Taoist practice is a journey from body to mind to spirit, the Buddhist, which is the mind only, and Confucianism, which is ethics, in actually practicing on the journey itself, combined with the Hawkins map. Now you have a journey of shift of consciousness that you can actually move into love itself. And love is discovering who you really are without the distortion of self and emotions. And emotions are all lower energy. Okay, so the connectivity is not a connectivity of emotions. It's not a feeling. It's not even a sensation. It is a realization of awakening. And when you can rid of all your emotions as you move through, the ability to regulate, the ability to work on your mind, body, spirit together into unification. And when you find out who you truly are, love is just natural. And so this is the type of work that we do. And the best way to practice it is on ourselves in our organization. And so business, when you're doing well-being itself, is holism, which is really understanding how the system serves the whole system and not part of the system. And so that's what we do. And I look forward to work with the same methodology of learning, coaching, and healing, of shifting consciousness to moving that direction. I'm very interested to work with the Indian tradition, so we got even more richness to our Chinese tradition of ethics and body to spirit and mind only tradition. Yeah. So, and of course we have some collaboration with ION, but because of the COVID, it's got disrupted, and we look forward to continue to look at the science, particularly the physicalization of consciousness and the measurability of consciousness in technology and science into helping us shift consciousness.
Oh, Fred, thank you so much. I'm going to leave a couple of minutes. We're running a little bit over, but Shawan, I want to let you make any last remarks. And then I'll have one thing to say when we finish. But Fred, thank you. It's kind of like sitting at the feet of a master to hear you talk. You are such a teacher with a capital T, and we're really blessed to have you with us. Shawan, any last closing comments you'd like to make? Oh, and I do want to recognize that Rajen has had his hand up for a long time, that I'm really trying to let the panelists do their last comments. And so I'm sorry that we're running out of time, but you can put things in the chat. And we definitely are going to keep connected with these incredible presenters and leaders. So there'll be more. Shawan.
Thank you, Judy. As closing, I'm going to just tell a quick story. I would invite all the researchers who are part of this group to think about this very seriously, knowing the suffering, the sense of desperation that is shared by both students and teachers and family and communities during such a surreal and difficult time. My daughter invited me to watch a TikTok video. The video started to look up into the sky and how many stars are out there in the universe. It's countless and infinite. There's always a place and an origin of a sense of awe and wonder. And then the video invite me to say, how about look at your own body? Just know that you have greater number, which means more number of neutrons and cells and atoms within the body that I possess. Why should we be also in awe with the amazingness, the beautiful creation that we are possessing to begin with? And if we choose to express and extend that into a community, look at the wonderful complementary, the amazing and new unique talents and the gifts that we bring into each other, in addition to amazed creation that we already possess. When we talk about love, it's not just a concept. It is who we actually are. I think if we can do research to invite and to elevate, to show this profound amazingness and the sacred nature of who we are, and that will give hope to people who seemingly not going to make it, and to the people who's just about to give up. And in Kalamazoo community alone, last week, we had 7 other attempts of students. It saddens me. So let's all standing together to do the research that gives love, that is life-giving, and hope to the world, because we're gonna need it. Thank you so much, Judy, and to all.
Thank you so much, Shawan. And Barbara Nussbaum said in the chat, she doesn't hear anything here in this talk about communal love, but I think that we all, well, I know we all see that as first the individual being in touch with ourself as love, as that field of love. And when we can do that, then we shift the energy around us for those who are suffering, as Shawan has so beautifully brought to mind, that we cannot forget. And that as that shifts around us, there's more and more interconnection around the planet, so that as a one humanity, we become more peaceful, more compassionate, more joyful, more playful, more in attunement with the environment. But it gets more and more communal. And that's what we need to study. We need to be able to do more research on that. So I want to thank each of these incredible panelists for sharing your wisdom and giving us just a little taste of the research that you're doing and that you see needs to do, that there needs to be more. I want to thank you for your passion for collaborating with each other and with the MSR community. And then what I'd like to do is also invite you, because it's so frustrating to hear you for 7 or 8 minutes. And then you want more. I know that all of us are wanting more from each of you. So I want to invite each of you back. We do webinars throughout the whole year in MSR, and I would like each of you to come back and do at least a whole hour, maybe 90-minute webinar that gets much more interactive, and where you can advise students and researchers about where they need to go with their work and how they could help you, and just to make it much more interactive than we're able to do today. We just gave people a taste of what you're doing. And so thank you so much. It's wonderful to be with you. There really is a field of love here that I think people are sensing and just loving tapping into. So thank you very much.
Thank
Paul?
you. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you so much, Judy. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
Fred.
Thank
Thank you, Prasad,
Bye.
Claire, Shawan.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Judy.
everyone.
Thank
Great to be together.
Thank you.